Ladies and gentlemen, big hairy news.
Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another episode of Big Hairy News. Just me to start the show off tonight. Chewie is at a Sarah Millican, I think it's Millican comedy gig, which I believe he says is due to finish sort of nowish. So Chewie will jump on and join in with us a little bit later on. Lovely that you guys are back with us tonight. Very excited to have a chat tonight. Got to put a really interesting show. Obviously, huge day of worldwide news today, which we will be covering off shortly. Also, we had a bit of a conversation last night about what we are looking to do in 2025 and speaking to people who are potentially wanting to become patrons and stuff. And today has been a very interesting day in the world of Patreon, but we will get to that all shortly. I will share all that information with you because to start off with, we are going to invite to the show an emergency doctor, Dr. Gary Payinda, to talk about the demotion of Reti, the application of the Brown, don't know if that's right or not, to the health syllabus, the health portfolio. Gary, thanks for joining us tonight.
Happy to be here, Pat. Thanks for having me.
Question that I posed on Sunday morning, because rumours were that Dr. Shane Reti was going, and I started wondering why. We spoke last night with Luxon being very, very, very clear that he wanted people to know that he hadn't lost confidence in Dr. Reti, so he wasn't underperforming. And so therefore he wasn't underperforming, but he was moved on. And we had another theory, which is, has Dr. Reti got to a position where he is so, the policies that this government's putting in, he maybe can't, did he ask to be pushed? And I wonder, did you have any insights or any thoughts as to why he left or was moved on?
No, I don't have any insights. It would just be conjecture at this point. I mean, I think there's a lot of anger in the community from patients and from doctors and nurses, and maybe that's reflected in bad polling numbers for national. Maybe they decided to just change things up. Maybe they need to make more harsh austerity cuts, and they just need to get a fresh face in there, like a fall guy, to do even more damage. I mean, maybe Shane did the first part of the damage, maybe the first third, and they need someone to progress the second stage. I mean, my prediction would be that in the third year, that's when you start seeing gifts being dangled, carrots being dangled, and that's when you might see them get a little bit nicer to places that they need the vote. Not Northland, because it traditionally votes national, but other places. And maybe you'll see a little bit less meanness and austerity. But I wouldn't guarantee that. So no, I don't really have any insights. For me, Pat, it doesn't matter which arsonist is burning down the house. Yeah. It doesn't matter what mask they have on or what sound bites they generate. Judge them not by their actions, not by their supposed reputation as a doctor, 20 years ago. Judge them by what they actually do. And I mean, if you use that metric of actual deeds, not words, you would see that Dr. Reti, and I'm charitable in calling him that, has done some truly horrendous things against the public health, whether it's supporting tobacco sales or tax cuts, $216 million to help Philip Morris out, getting rid of the smoke-free reforms, which actually National, the last time around, was the ones who proposed it. And Shane was a supporter of reducing nicotine in cigarettes, for example. And this time, I mean, I think his ambition went way beyond him being a doctor. And he was silent when the country needed him most. And was really not just silent. I mean, he voted for these things, whether it's assault rifles, whether it's raising speed limits, which will absolutely increase the number of fatal accidents in the country. Like on time after time after time, he's been given the chance to be a public health advocate. The guy worked in informatics for a while. He did a lot of things, I think, to get out of being a GP. He was a dermatologist for a while. He was informatics for ages. But if anyone should understand how important it is to have good data and IT, it should be a doctor. But yet he was an integral part of slashing the data and IT jobs by 47%. That is destructive on a scale like we've never seen before, right? They've eliminated 9,000 public sector jobs. They really have gutted things. And like people in IT, for example, are saying, like, how could you have done this? We desperately needed a total refurbishment of our IT services. If you come in to me as a patient, I can't even access your medical data. Like, you might as well be from another country. No, our systems don't talk. So if you're outside my little region and you come to me in the middle of the night with a serious emergency, I don't have access to it. Even if you're just in town and you lived in my town, I couldn't access your GP notes. It's wild how badly we needed these things. And Shane knew it. And yet he voted or was integral in gutting service after service after service, including cutting, as I said, 47% of computer IT jobs in health. That's suicide. It's incredibly short-sighted, and it's going to be hellishly expensive having to hire contractors to provide all of these roles later.
Having the computers not talk to each other, it just reminds me of, I was too young to do it, but elder relatives and siblings who went and did their OE in the UK in the sort of 90s, 80s and 90s, they didn't have a system where the banks talk to each other. That's 35 years ago. And so all the Kiwis would go and get their £500 out from that bank, and then they'd go to another branch and get their £500 out. Then they'd go to another branch and get their 500, and then they'd jump on the plane and come home. Didn't work out so good for them, 20 years later when they wanted to go back. But that's 35 years ago. Computers weren't talking to each other 35, 40 years ago. And you're saying our health system today is the same as that.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with your analogy is it gets even worse, because we're not talking about making an extra $500. We're talking about when you come to me sick, as can be, critically ill in the ED, I can't access your chemo records. I can't find out what medicines you're on. I can't access virtually anything. Now, of course, the following day we can put in paper requests and fax things back and forth and get things photocopied and sent. But for a country as small as ours with 5 million people, it's insane the level of neglect that has been allowed to happen in healthcare. But what's different with this government is they're not even acknowledging it. They are gaslighting as hard as they can. Like, for example, we lack literally thousands of nurses. The understaffing is bad. We have to close down beds in 100% full hospitals because there's not enough nurses to staff the beds. And this isn't just one hospital. This is, across the country in various places. And the rhetoric, it would at least be respectable if they said, things are hard and there's not enough nurses and we can't afford to hire them. And that's that. What they're saying is we have overhired nurses. You've heard this. We have overstaffed nurses. We have exceeded our expectations for how many we would hire. No. Stop lying. You've under budgeted massively. And so now what looks like a surplus is actually, a really bad deficit. And so it's the gaslighting that's getting old. And there's enough people in health now that absolutely call them out on it and knew. You've seen doctor after doctor just before they resign or move to Australia, they will come out and be honest. They will leak the email chain. They will say, our hospital has no doctor at night. We're a doctorless hospital. I mean, when's the last time you heard of that? It's just insane. Things really have gotten worse. And yet we're being told that they're better. And it just doesn't, it doesn't add up. It's like we're living in an alternate reality. So yeah, I don't know, getting back to Shane, whether it's him or Simeon or a different arsonist does not matter. At the end of the day, the building will still be burned down. Our public services, not just health, are getting absolutely punished, gutted, defunded, destabilized. And when that happens, and this is in country after country around the world, this is a recipe. You hire consultants from the private corporations and you become friendly with the power brokers in the private world. And you start making deals with private hospitals and private clinics and private everything. And that's where we're headed. And it would be one thing if we were a rich country and we could all afford really good private health insurance, but you can rest assured that's not the case. Most people can't, and they depend on public services being there for them. And it's getting harder and harder to maintain in this austerity situation.
That picture you paint of not being able to get hold of records, like I'm just imagining it's 11 p.m. on a Saturday night. Obviously, lots of places are shut on Sunday. Someone comes in unconscious. Then what? So not only can the person not tell you, but the records can't tell you. You know who they are because you got their driver's license. It's possible you might make the wrong decision because you're not being able to access their files.
Of course. So we end up having to duplicate and waste a lot of money. Now, realize all of these things we're talking about, these expenses, this is stuff that Mr. Luxon will call a back office, a back room cost. He keeps saying this thing. It's just like business speak, CEO talk. Oh, I'm just cutting the back room, the back office. It's no big deal. Patient care won't be affected. Public services won't be. It's all BS. Like, of course, these cuts are affecting us. When you fire, or I should say, what's the word for it? They don't call it firing. It's disestablish half of the roles in data and IT. What the heck do you think is going to happen? Yeah, it's atrocious. And it's not just data and IT. We keep railing on about that. But if you look at their support of big tobacco, it's absolutely rancid. I mean, there are so many tobacco lobbyists employed in government right now. So many close relatives of people, of powerful politicians who work for Philip Morris. People who led the campaigns, managed campaigns for New Zealand First that have moved into Philip Morris corporate gigs. That it's just dismaying. It's unfortunate. The public deserves better than this. And when they say there's no money, I just want people to be completely lucidly clear that there's tons of money for health and schools and bridges and what have you. It just went to higher priority people than my patients. It went to landlords. So if you are in the top 0.2% of landlords in the country, of property owners in the country, that means you own 50 or more units of real estate. So, I mean, think about the wealth that. So a person who has 50 units is going to get the taxpayer to help fund their mortgage insurance, right? They can deduct mortgage insurance. If you're a single mother, if you're a first home buyer, not even people maybe struggling, but if you are any regular person, do you get the taxpayer giving you a tax break on your mortgage interest? You should, but you absolutely don't. This government has given the big bucks 16 billion in tax cuts that mostly target the wealthy, and then the 3 billion for landlords, which is just incredible. And they will couch it, and they'll say there's a lot of mom and pop landlords out there, right? The majority of them are. Turns out it's not true. Probably 2/3 of the landlords out there are not mom and pop owners. And of course, if you cared so much about the elderly person with a batch that they rent out on Airbnb or what have you, you could make a carve out. You can protect poor people. And like, we need a government that starts doing that, whatever side it's on, whatever party. We need a government that helps the bottom majority of the country. So you look at these tax cuts, and you plug in, tonight I plugged in some numbers for someone making minimum wage or near minimum wage, and I use minimum wage, and to see how much the tax cuts would get you, the tax breaks that the government touts. $24. Okay, I think it was $24. It was like $24 a week or a fortnight. I'm not quite sure, but that was the order of like the range of it, around $20 every 1 or 2 weeks. And for that, your public hospitals are getting decimated. Your primary care is non-existent. GP services are crumbling around the country. That's why you can't get a GP appointment. That's why so many towns don't have any GPs taking new patients. It is a mess. And the ones that they immediately looked out for were the landlords. So I just have to bring it back to that. It was the wealthy. And, you know, I don't know. I don't think anyone who voted them in expected it to be this way.
No, I think you're right. We hear so often that a lot of national voters just wanted their tax break and stuff, and the other stuff they're doing. Many are saying, "Hang on, we didn't vote for this." You were talking about a privatization. Well, we've been talking about it this way, that in opposition, the National Party and the right would say, government can't work, look at the bureaucracy, it's bloated. And then they get into government and they make policies which fail. And then they step back and they say, see, we told you it wasn't going to work, even though they've put the policies in place to make things like the health system fail. But I'd like to know from you as well, what are the dangers that we need to know about privatization, especially in the for-profit healthcare region?
I think there's a lot of assumptions by New Zealanders about private health insurance, about how good it is, how efficient it is, and all of that. And I would urge you to look at a recent meta-analysis that looked at the privatization internationally of public systems and found that they actually had higher hospitalization rates, higher death rates, worse outcomes, and higher costs. And I think it flies in the reality is, we all think that maybe we've been, I guess, brainwashed to think that private means better, but private means that corporation is sucking as much profit out of it as they can. So that means you're losing 10, 20, 30% of the healthcare dollars to profits. They're getting sucked out. And what they find is with a lot of private systems, there's just this incredible push to understaff, and it really becomes a not good situation. Now, the reason that some of my colleagues might think private is more efficient is because currently the private sector is able to skim the cream off the top. So if you are sick with comorbidities, that means illnesses like diabetes, high blood pressure, asthma, whatever, or you have a complex problem, those sorts of patients remain within the public system and get paid for by our tax dollars. But the private system siphons off the profitable stuff, the easy stuff, scoping knees, right, for someone who has a running injury. That's not a complicated patient you're usually dealing with. You can crank out quite a few cataract surgeries, quite a few of these procedures, and get them reimbursed, whether it's through ACC or whether it's through the public system channeling money out there. And of course, that's what we're going to see in spades coming up. because essentially private insurance, the number of people seeking it is rising, and the number of private hospitals that are starting up, they're in a growth period right now because they see that the money is going to come their way. And remember, Pat, the minute you get sick at a private hospital after your surgery, I'll give you 2 guesses where you go, where they send you the minute you become significantly complex or ill.
They'd probably come and see you, wouldn't they? In the emergency department or something.
They get sent to the public hospital immediately. So the costs are always borne by the taxpayer, by the public sector, by the public citizens paying taxes, and the profits are always kept in the private sector. So it's a recipe as old as time.
Privatizing the profits and socializing the losses. That's what capitalism has done for decades to go, so to speak.
That's a better way of putting it.
Yeah, I want to show people your Substack. It's a very, very good read. Dr. Gary Payinda.substack.com. You've written a piece here about New Zealand's population growth. I wouldn't mind you speaking a bit to that. I know you've spoken about it a bit recently, maybe with Bernard Hickey.
No, fine.
But now you're in the big leagues. Bernard, it'd be great to hear your thoughts around the population, especially because and I do want to include in this the idea of what you seem to be saying, my word, not yours, is that this problem within the health system is somewhat systemic. Because if it's been around for a long time, that's multiple governments. Like Labor, they had a good chance for 3 years to do whatever they wanted to. Didn't fix it. Maybe you can't fix it in 3 years, so be it. But it seems like this can't all be laid at the feet of this current government, but they do seem to be pouring fuel on that fire. So can you talk to us about the issues around population growth, especially when it relates to the health system, and also that idea about previous governments, their contribution to where we are today?
Yeah, I think in my Substack article, I just set this analogy up of, the underfunding has been long. It's been there for a long time. I've been working here for almost 20 years, and it's always been kind of getting by on the smell of an oily rag. Essentially, it's like a car that you just keep cramming more people into. And what's different now in the past year is that you've got government essentially selling off the hubcaps, selling off the wheels, disassembling the antenna. Like, it's getting harder and harder to do the job. But I think there's a goal behind it. And that goal ultimately will probably be just like the push in the US. You realize that having come from the United States originally, I can see who Christopher Luxon is and understand that he spent a lot of time in the United States and ingrained a lot of the ruthless pursuit of power and profit that is just part of the corporatist mentality. But yeah, aside from that, there has been long-standing underfunding and deferred maintenance, but it's accelerated over the past year. So the population issue I'd like to speak to for just a minute is that this year, New Zealand is going to get about 93,000 additional people. I almost called them patients because some of them will be patients.
Yeah.
Last year, 93,000. The year before that, around 90,000. If you go back and back and back, you're looking at literally many hundreds of thousands of people just in the past 5 to 10 years. And you have to ask yourself, why isn't a government, any government, whatever one, the last one, the one before that, this one, telling us the truth, which is that we need to be building a large hospital for this population literally every year. This year, we should have had a Dunedin-sized hospital. Last year, we should have had a Dunedin-sized hospital built. The year before that, should have had yet another Dunedin-sized hospital built. And instead, we can't even maintain the ones we've got. They're the budget constraints, because again, we've given this money away to groups in society that matter more than regular patients. they say we don't have the money. And, to that, I would say you gave 2.9 billion to landlords. Take it back. 2.9 billion would give every New Zealander free dental care. It would correct the entire deficit of specialist doctors in the country. It would increase GPs by about 50%. So we would have lots of GPs, and you could hire something like 3,000 to 4,000 nurses. Would fix literally all of our atrocious understaffing problems. That's just with the 3 billion that they've given to landlords. And again, I know there's going to be friends of mine who have one unit and they're going to say, we have a batch. The tax break helps us. Fine. Carve out the poorer folks amongst them, the needy, the ones who need it. So if they need a little help, fine. But don't give someone with 300 units taxpayer tax cuts, tax breaks, and incentives to buy more investment property. It's just obscene. And so, getting back to population, last year, 93,000 additional New Zealanders, the vast majority of them by migration, inwards migration. Where are the politicians admitting the unavoidable truth that we have to take care of those people? They have to have schools, they have to have hospitals and rest homes, and we have to be building them at a fantastic rate. And nowhere in public speech have I seen any of these talking heads ever address that issue, honestly. Don't get it.
Because of that 93,000, obviously some are going to be born, but then others are going to die, but others are going to migrate here. There's going to be 15.
I think 70 to 80% of that is migration.
So let's call that 65,000 people. There's going to be 10,000 school kids in that, or whatever, 15,000 school kids, and that's bigger than any high school in New Zealand by about 5 to 7-fold. So what do we do?
So let's not even talk about the rebuild of Dunedin Hospital. That's a foregone conclusion. That had to have happened years ago, right? The rebuild of my hospital, which is tenuous at best, we're always like begging and cajoling and pleading that it'll happen. That needs to be a foregone conclusion. Of course that has to happen. Like there was a time when New Zealand had 12 hospital beds per 1,000 citizens.
Right.
And now the number is down to 2.8.
Wow.
Come on. So yeah, we have chosen other priorities to pursue.
Well, when you say we, not we, but those guys on the 9th floor, that we.
Well, we let it happen, Pat.
Yeah. Yes.
The fact that you and I are talking about things and people haven't heard this before, that this is going to blow some minds, that they're going to have to look up the numbers and look it up themselves, and I could go on and on and on. So this is economic suicide. These politicians paint themselves as being responsible and we're good businessmen and things. This is atrocious business. The $5 subsidy for prescription drugs, like you remember that, the last government or whatever introduced it. And so my patients, when I sent them out, they would actually get the antibiotics I prescribed for them. It was free at the chemist. They would just pick them up.
Yep.
That was gotten rid of. And no one talks about the fact that the medical literature performed in New Zealand showed that the prescription drug subsidy, the free prescriptions, reduced hospitalizations by about 30%.
Wow.
Now, that's one study. You can't go building, an empire on one study, but it was a good study and a big study. And it was relevant because it was in New Zealand. It was done by our people, and it was a good study. And so if you get rid of the $5 copay subsidy, knowing that it will affect hospitalizations that badly, what can I call that except some kind of vicious intentional, non-economic, like economically ignorant injury to the public. That's how I view it. I mean, I take all of this stuff very personally, which probably I shouldn't, but this is all very visceral to me. And yeah, I can admit that I hate what's happening. I absolutely detest what's happening. I know that thousands of people could have been saved if any part of the smoke-free legislation had been allowed to survive. Even the little bit that Shane initially supported years ago before he turned coat and went against it, just reducing nicotine in cigarettes could have helped. Reducing the number of tobacco outlets, making sure that kids can't buy tobacco and then going forward wouldn't have access. Like all of these people are doing the most anti-public health stuff ever. And it's not about politics at that point. Like when you're literally making policy that will kill more New Zealanders, more Maori, more, you name it, it just doesn't work for me. And I think it's intolerable.
I was going to ask you a question, is what difference will Brown make? But I think with the arsonist comment at the start, you've basically said maybe he'll be a bit faster, the house will burn down a bit quicker perhaps, but he's there. So maybe this is my last question. It's a bit of a strange one because it's probably one that I would normally ask of a political pundit, but you're at the coalface. Yeah, I'm sorry, my radio days kick in sometimes and I get a bit cheesy. So if you would write a prescription for what we needed to do, like what do we need to do to push back on this? What do we, the public, the great unwashed, the voter, the ratepayer, the citizen, what do we need to do to try and fight back against this?
I don't know, man. If I knew, I would be doing it. I am just a doctor in one of the most underserved regions of Northland. Been here working for 17 years. And I don't have an answer for you, Pat. Like your answer would be better than mine. I don't know. When
you said we let it happen, though, that's a pretty good answer. And obviously, a lot of people's minds today with the inauguration of Donald Trump, people think it's going to be great, and that's going to be a nightmare for America, an absolute nightmare. People are already losing money buying his hoax scheme, coin drops and stuff. And in a year's time, people will be saying, we let it happen. So how do we not let it happen? I always go back to what Chloe Swarbrick told us last year. We organise. We start at the grassroots. We push back. We get involved. We activate, and we try and make this a one-term government, if possible.
I mean, it sounds good, and certainly I've shown up for some of these like protests against cuts against public services and what have you. But as long as these politicians can make money from this, right? We just heard, Stephen Joyce made $1 million for assessing Waikato University and deciding that a third med school is a good idea, right? There's a lot of funny business going on. Like all of these people, Shane will probably be the chancellor of that third medical school that we don't need because we've chosen to underfund the first two that we have. It's a tiny country. We could easily turn those two med schools into something much bigger. It's a matter of priorities. And if you had put some of a tiny fraction, infinitesimally small amount of the money you gave to landlords, if you put that in Otago or Auckland Med School, you absolutely could have handled what we need going forward. No, it's not a money issue. And I'm not so confident, Pat, that marching is going to change Simeon's mind or Mr. Luxon's mind. These people are about money and power. If you affect their ability to make money or their ability to own power, then you will see change. I had a friend who voted for National this last time around. He's not super stoked about it. He's an emergency doctor as well, and he's got some issues now. But he, in total seriousness, proposed that politicians not be allowed to take private health insurance, that they have to go to the same public hospital that our patients have to go to.
Yep.
And I mean, I laughed. I thought he was joking at first, but he raises what I think now, thinking about it more, is actually a good point. As long as these people can live in fancy neighborhoods and have private health insurance and have private schools and never have to feel what, let's say, Northland patients or New Zealand patients have to feel. You know, Christopher Luxon, Shane Reti will never in their lives have to wait 7 hours in a waiting room full of coughing and sick and moaning and suffering people. He will never have to do that. And I think the only thing that will affect politicians is when they have to live like regular people. And until you affect their ability to get money, so, I mean, imagine how much money ACT or National or Labor, whomever, will get if they make laws that help the real estate industry, the private hospital industry, you name it. There's going to be kickbacks, whether they get jobs later on or they get campaign finance now. So it's multifactorial. Like, we've got to ensure that campaign finance is locked down and only public. In an ideal world, we would ensure that Shane and Simeon and Christopher had to go to public hospitals like my patients. But yeah, I don't know. How do you make that happen, Pat? You've been doing this for a long time. You're smarter than I am. How do you make that happen?
Well, you just remind me as well, though, it doesn't give a solution. We had Gary Economics on the other night. We didn't have him on. We played some of his clip the other night, and he talked about a recent prime minister from the UK whose salary was £150,000, which is quite low compared to other prime ministers. But his first year out of politics, he got paid £10 million to work for a company. So as a politician, when he's making decisions on policy, is he going to think about the group of people that pay him £150,000, or is he going to think about the one that's coming after? I know we don't have this kind of money in New Zealand, but that's paying him £10 million. And Gary Economics used a saying, and I probably have the paper here somewhere: we no longer have ownership of our own politicians. The oligarchy has ownership of our politicians. So I don't know how you stop that, because even if we did all the things you're saying, the first year out of politics, they could earn $10 million. Then what?
Yeah. But you know what? We have to start somewhere. And we've got to start somewhere, because if we allow them to do what they're doing, which is defunding, destabilizing, and eventually privatizing essential public services, we're really going to end up with haves and have-nots in this country, with an elite, the sort of Luxons of the world that can sell a few houses this year and raise $500,000 or $1 million. After they change the laws, benefiting from the very laws that they changed to allow it to be tax-free. So, I mean, it's multifactorial. Do we need a capital gains tax? Of course. We're letting wealthy people get away with murder here. Sometimes literally, not murder, but deaths of neglect by people who are stuck on waiting lists, who can't get in to see their cancer specialist for months and months and months. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I'm done.
I hope I haven't made you too angry and you can get to sleep tonight. You're not going to be. I was wondering, actually, when you walk into a room, is there a difference between how the people sitting in the room react to you if it's a room full of nurses versus a room full of, say, healthcare bureaucrats? Do you get a different response from each of those groups of people?
When am I meeting healthcare bureaucrats except in meetings where they tell me to shut up?
Right.
No, right. That's not the world I live in. I don't. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No. When I walk into patient rooms, the really crappy thing is to have to immediately say, "I'm sorry that it took me 4 hours to see you," or 5 hours to see you. That's the crappiest part of it.
Well, listen, I haven't put a lot of them up, but the chat's been going crazy for you. They love you to bits. Our regular messenger, asshole, says, Dr. Payinda says it all. I could listen to this guy all night. And that goes on and on and on. Where's the other ones? There's down the bottom here. One here. Kiwi Bird says, hi, Dr. Gary, big fan of your work. We've got Brian Turner who says, Brown will crush the public health system. I guess what we're saying, and what the chat is unanimous in, is we love what you're doing. We really appreciate you, and we want to keep speaking to you, unfortunately for an awful reason, but if we're not talking about it, then no one is, Gary, and they can get you on Substack, and I want to have you on here more if you're wanting to come on. And I guess I'm just going to say now, thank you so much for our 10 to 15 minute chat that's lasted 35 minutes.
You're most welcome. I'm happy to talk about this stuff to anyone, with anyone, one-on-one or on a podcast. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that we create a better community and a better society and a better New Zealand. And one of the ways you do that is by collecting taxes and using them for the things that matter. And essential public services, education, like nursing, police, even like the Defense Force, things you might not think about, like have all been damaged under the sort of austerity privatization scheme that's been going on now for the past year. And I'm not sure that things are going to be okay after 2 more years of this. And we know that Simeon has no health. His name's Simeon, right? It's not Simon, right? It's Simeon.
Simeon.
And we know that Simeon has no health experience, very little real world experience of any kind, has done some atrocious things with the speed laws, essentially turning a deaf ear to all the public health. We have trauma surgeons telling you that when other countries like UK dropped their speeds from 40 to 30, they reduced fatalities by, I think in the UK it was like 42%. But it's in that realm of an incredible difference in terms of broken and injured and dying and dead people prevented by these small changes. And we've got this absurd politician saying that it's going to increase productivity so massively, to get to work 93 seconds faster. It's just, it's beyond belief. And we can talk about it more some other time. I could keep going on, but me talking about it doesn't change Jack. And I don't know that marching changes it. We've got to come up with ways of affecting these politicians in terms of power and money, because that's the only thing that matters to them. It's the only language they speak. And whether they trade out one for another, Shane for Simeon or vice versa, irrelevant. What matters is we've got to preserve the things that make a society better. And public health care and primary care and elder care, public schools, these are important things. They're beyond important. They're critical.
All right. Gary, thanks so much for being so generous with your time tonight. Always enjoy having you on, and love to have you back super soon.
You're welcome. Talk soon,
right.
Pat. Bye-bye.
Gary Payinda, an emergency doctor. Right, a few more messages that have been coming in. Mr. Arvids with a late fee. Thank you, sir. Vanda Amour with a late fee. Thank you. We've also got Wooming saying, Simeon will reduce abortion and transgender healthcare by reducing funding and access. He is ideologically toxic and will make our health system dangerous. JC and the pigeon caps. This government... Cats. I said caps. I'm wearing a new cap, that's why. JC and the pigeon cats, this government propensity to prioritize the wealthy over us is the reason I wear my bottom feeder hoodie out most days, even when it's too hot. You go on, you're dedicated. And Peter Syme, like time, says shock doctrine. All right, guys. Chewie may or may not be joining us, momentarily. He's at a comedy gig tonight. We have got lots to get on with if Chewie does or doesn't join us. So glad that you're with me tonight. Now, yesterday we had a bit of a chat after the talk with Gary, or not with, but using Gary Economics, about the ownership of your public servant. We also talked about ownership of your media, and we encouraged you, and we're going to be bold about this year, that if you are someone who wants to get involved, who wants to help us with what we're doing, then Patreon's a really good place to go. We want to expand this year. We want to do more shows. We want to get more people on. We want to have completely different independent shows from BHN and other people doing them, and we want to build up this platform, which is a great term to use, and get more of these messages out there. People who we're losing in the media because of what's happening in the advertising world, I want to give them a call and say, have you thought about doing a podcast? Come and do it with us. And because of that little chat last night, I put out a number that I said, I want to try and get 100 new patrons within the next couple of months. It's a little bit random, couple of months. So what would we say? We're in January, so February, March. So by the end of March, I want to have another 100 patrons. That's what we're aiming for. And so I want to say very much thanks to, and I think it's Niall de Jong, Simon McCallum, Jeff Goodman, Megan McBride, Danielle Louis, Touche Law, Jendi Burwell, Nick Stoneman, Sandy, and Alex Ireland, all who basically signed up to Patreon yesterday. And there are more people who have signed up in the last kind of 6 hours. I made that list about 6 hours ago. So thank you. I will get to your names tomorrow. We normally only do this new patrons thing on a Monday, but next Monday I will be on honeymoon. And what I make for the closing credits this weekend will probably remain that for the next 2 weeks. So I guess if you want to see your name in the credits after this weekend, then you can sign up to Patreon in the next 2 days and it will be in there. I also want to have a mention of Jera Nelson. Jera changed his level of patronage, went up a layer to pay us a little bit more, to Kerry Moses, who did the same, became a super patron, to Ruben Tekoiti Mead, who has also increased their Patreon, and also to Moriora, who I think I've seen in the chat tonight, who's also increased their patronage. We're serious about this, and we're going to be bold about this. I think one of the things I'm learning from doing this, and also learning from watching American cohorts who are doing a similar thing, is that the right for too long have been just fine being assholes and being bullshit and being pushy and being grumpy to a point that they get their way, and the left have been too nice and the left have been too accommodating. And I'm not saying we're going to turn into, asshole FM, because that name is copyrighted by one of the people in our chat. But I am saying we're going to be bolder, and we're going to make bolder statements, and we're going to say bolder things, and we're going to ask bolder questions. And they are going to include things like, if you want to support the work we're doing, patreon.com/Big Hearing News. We live in a country where I think often we go, don't want to talk too much about money. Unless you're Brian Tamaki, then that's all you talk about. But I think there's a happy medium for us to go to you. Like, I'm very appreciative of all that. We love what you guys are doing. I agree. Thanks. We want to do more. How we do more is with help from you guys. We're also potentially going to be looking for advertising and that kind of stuff. I'd prefer to stay further away from that, but if we were to do in the ideal world what my vision is for this, that sort of stuff might need to come in, but it's not coming in yet. Don't panic about it. And if it does come in, it'll certainly only be something that ethically aligns with us. You won't see any tobacco companies advertised on here, for example. You know what I'm saying. Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff I want to talk to you about tonight. And as I said about being a bit more bolshy, pushing a few more buttons, being a bit more, and I'll say aggressive in our positioning rather than just being aggressive arseholes. This was a tweet I put out today to invite any right whingers out there that wanted to join us tonight. I'm not going to do this now, but I'll give you an example of me being a bit bolder and being a bit more bolshy. Hey, any right whingers out there, if you want to know why your "what is a woman" question is so very stupid, and why you're being so stupid for thinking it's a gotcha question, come check out tonight's show. We will explain it to you like you're 5 years old. So we'll be doing that shortly as well. We'll be explaining that to any right whingers who are out there who are wanting to understand why it's such a stupid question, and you're also very, very stupid for thinking it's a gotcha. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show you someone from your camp who actually thinks they are making some kind of gotcha point when in fact what they're doing is disproving their own thoughts. The media's got a part to play in this. We'll look at that as well. I guess we got to do this. I was going to try and see which way Chewie would come. That's what she said. So maybe we should start. Well, let's just start with looking at the Trump inauguration, because we've got the Elon Musk. Apparently the inauguration caused Elon to get to catch a bit of Nazi. Yeah, a little bit. Let's start with a One News story on the inauguration, because if we do that, we can then look at it and give Chewie a bit more time. Chewie may not get here. We'll see what happens, but it'll give us a bit more time to have a look at it. So this is from One News tonight. This is 5.5, 6 minutes long. We are going to watch pretty much the whole thing, and we may stop along the way to chat as to what we're looking at.
He's back. Donald Trump, once again, one of the most powerful figures on the planet, sworn in as the 47th president of America and immediately delivering a policy blitz that's got the world watching. Only the second US president to serve non-consecutive terms, Trump declared the golden age of America begins right now as he...
What utter horseshit. Begins right now. This is the Make America Great Again. Hang on. If it's beginning now, surely your logic says there's been a golden age because it's again. No? Or maybe it's just pablum and bullshit. Perhaps.
Outlined his agenda in a wide-ranging inauguration speech. Among the moves, declaring illegal immigration at the US-Mexico border a national emergency and sending troops there to ramp up deportations. A pledge to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America.
Which will do nothing and won't show up on any maps, and it's just a complete wolf whistle. Is that the right word? No. To his racist supporters.
Yeah, and
dog whistle.
Taking back the Panama Canal.
Act of war.
The newly sworn-in president also vowed to once again withdraw the US from the Paris Climate Agreement.
Which he's already done.
The international pact to fight global warming and, quote, drill baby drill for oil. Trump also proclaimed the government will only recognise two genders, male...
This is going to be this part of the conversation about the two genders. That's a part of the whole, what we're going to talk about to those dumb right-wingers. That's coming up shortly.
...and female, signing orders ending diversity programs. We've got extensive coverage this evening. US correspondent Logan Church is standing by live in chilly Washington, D.C. We begin with his report on how this historic day unfolded.
Just quietly, for people who don't want to watch or hear this, that's cool, I get it. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's the biggest news story in the world today. So we're looking at it.
A triumphant return to the White House. The incoming president being welcomed by the outgoing one.
Yeah, did you hear Biden? Welcome home. Dude, you can... Do you remember when was it the Queen met with Trump and she purposely just stayed neutral? Wasn't happy, wasn't sad, didn't offend, just stayed neutral. And I think the Pope might have done it too, because he's an awful human being. Biden, welcome home. Probably can't remember who he's talking to though.
Reinstating the traditional handover of the Oval Office. After the two men met for tea, they left together for the US Capitol. Due to the below-zero temperatures, the ceremony was moved indoors. A small crowd, including the political elite and titans of the tech world, gathered.
Interesting, Michelle Obama wasn't there. And I watched, if you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube already. Go watch the Jon Stewart clip with his review from The Daily Show, basically saying Michelle Obama is the only person to stay by her morals. Because how can you happily have a cup of tea with someone you refer to as Hitler-esque, Hitler-like? And if you're just going to have a cup of tea with them and ride in the car with them, that probably says something about you and your morals. Just speaking, just saying it.
To watch Donald Trump do what many thought was unthinkable, being sworn back in as president.
So help me God. So help me God.
So here's another thing for you. This didn't get reported very much, but I saw it on a couple of tweets. Didn't put his hand on the Bible. Now, personally, I couldn't give a rat's ass that he didn't put his hand on the Bible. Think if Barack Obama had have not put his hand on the Bible. You know, that guy that the right were all talking about as a Muslim, who they lost their shit at when he wore a tan suit. If he hadn't put his hand on the Bible, that would have been the end of United States as a Christian country, according to the right wingers. But Trump doesn't do it. Not a peep. Not a peep. Isn't it weird? It's almost hypocritical.
Congratulations, Mr. President. The golden age of America begins right now.
Immediately announcing a raft of measures to achieve.
Although golden age probably makes sense, seeing I believe in his apartments, he has literal solid gold toilets. So maybe he's just thinking of the age that he can get more gold into his ownership personally, perhaps.
That
I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. We are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
while Donald Trump was quick to swing into action,
What's that saying? People who give a present and they want to take it back. If you're giving your present to someone, they can do whatever they want with it. But it's just all dog whistles, dog whistles, dog whistles, dog whistles.
today, Joe Biden made some final passing moves, including issuing pardons for people like Dr. Anthony Fauci, who led this country's COVID.
Now, this is interesting, yeah? The Biden pardon thing. He's a Biden family member. He's pardoned family members. He has, pardoned people like Dr. Fauci, as the reporter's just saying here. And there's a debate over this. Unfortunately, the debate, the moral high ground has kind of been lost by the Republicans and Trump supporters, because he straight away went in and signed pardons for, I think, 1,500 criminals who attacked the Capitol on January the 6th. Now, there's also this narrative that goes, well, you can see, obviously, Dr. Fauci was guilty of all these crimes because Biden pardoned him. So if we're going to use the same logic, that means the people were obviously guilty of all those horrific acts on January 6th because Trump pardoned them. See how it works when you want to be consistent?
General Mark Milley and members of the committee investigating the January 6, 2021 attack on the US Capitol. Now, are any of these people charged with a crime? No, but Joe Biden clearly concerns that Trump might carry out his threat of targeting his political enemies. In a final preemptive pardon flurry, Biden giving them to members of his own family, saying they'd been subjected to unrelenting attacks and threats motivated by a desire to hurt him. While Trump and new Vice President J.D. Vance cordially waved Biden goodbye soon after the swearing-in ceremony, the president later responding to his predecessor's actions.
Now, he's going to talk about the things that Joe did today with the pardons of people that were very, very guilty of very bad crimes.
As he pardons all those people who are very, very guilty of very bad crimes.
Then, at his reimagined indoor inauguration parade, Donald Trump truly cementing his status as a television president, signing.
It's honestly, this is the circus, and his supporters eat it up. This is populism at its most. He is literally signing orders in front of thousands of his fans. Now, I'm not saying this is the populism that we'll ever see in New Zealand, but this is the political world at the moment. It's a three-ring circus, and he is the ringmaster at the moment. And the left in America need to learn how to be populists as well. I don't care if you think that that's a bad idea and it's all about policy. Fine. You're not going to win. You're just not going to win. Gavin Newsom, you're not going to win. It's not how it works anymore. The only way Gavin Newsom wins is if the after Trump era of the Republicans, which is in 4 years from now, they go back to a standard Republican and it goes back to a standard off. But if they don't, they've got a formula now to win. The ultimate populist is basically doing WWE in front of 20,000 people by signing orders.
Executive orders in front of thousands of supporters and millions watching around the country.
Thank you, sir. The next item here is the withdrawal from the Paris Climate Treaty.
Could you imagine Biden doing this? I don't think so.
It's he's working the mic. WWE, that's what entertainers do.
I don't think so.
All to thunderous applause. As the sun sets on Washington, D.C. today, everyone in America will soon be waking up to the start of the second Trump era, which promises great change for the US and the world.
This is the weirdest thing in the world. They're using swords to cut the cake, and the swords won't cut the cake. Small side note, but there you go.
One thing's for certain,
how hard it is.
This will be unlike anything this country has ever seen.
This doesn't really work.
And Logan's with us now live from the heart of Washington, D.C. Donald Trump went straight to the Oval Office, Logan. Tell us what he did then.
Well, Simon, what was waiting for him was a large pile of black folders full of executive orders for him to sign. Top of that list was an almost blanket pardon for about 1,600 people who were charged following the events of January 6, 2021. You'll recall that after Donald Trump lost the 2020 election, he
1,600 people. 1,600 people on his first day who committed crimes in his name at the Capitol building.
refused to concede in quite a fiery speech here in Washington, D.C. Then after that, a mob of his supporters went to the U.S. Capitol and violently broke in while that vote was being certified by the then Vice President, Mike Pence. Now, after the events there were...
Oh, but you forget people. You know, the Republicans told you this was a tour. Just look, this is the tour that just got a little bit out of hand. That was one of the now. There's just a tour going on right here, not hundreds of people sprinting through the halls looking for Mike Pence to hang him. Just a tour.
Of course, many investigations, and as a result, many people were charged, some ending up in prison. Today, though, Donald Trump fulfilling a campaign promise of pardoning most of the January 6ers, as they are known here in America. Also on the executive order list today was one to do with TikTok. You'll recall that Congress has passed a ban banning TikTok, and a couple of days ago, the app went dark in America. Donald Trump promising to bring it back. What he did today is essentially delay that ban for 75 days in order to come up with some sort of deal with TikTok. He expressed some interest in the US coming.
One of the big concerns at the moment for many in media is the right is basically owning most, if not all, of social media. Twitter, then Zuckerberg bending the knee. TikTok is one of those places that still feels a bit left-leaning, but it's people like Kevin O'Reilly, the bald guy from Shark Tank, who was talking about wanting to buy it. Fox News regular. So there is a possibility that pretty much every social media will end up being owned by the right in America. And as we talked about last night, you know, we talked about in the old days, those who controlled the masthead, the front page of the paper controlled the storyline. Now it's those who own the algorithm. YouTube's still pretty good, you know, but all the social medias, if you want to get to an under 30s, the social medias is where they go. It's actually quite concerning.
Some joint venture arrangement with the Chinese-owned company. Whether TikTok or ByteDance has any interest in that, we don't know at this stage. But that's just one of dozens of executive orders signed by Donald Trump today, and it looks like he's just getting started.
Well, there you go. That's the end of it. Yeah, it's a terrifying situation to think that the right could own everything. They could own everything. They could have everything. They could own. I mean, they've already got the three outlets, whichever is the correct word. The three outlets of government in the US. Yeah, and the other part, of course, about this inauguration that was talked about a lot was the Elon Musk salute. I'm putting speech marks around it because others are. It looks like a salute to me. And I said that on Twitter today with some interesting responses. Let's have a look exactly what was, because a lot of people were saying, well, you got to see the whole thing. Don't take it out of context. Seeing the whole thing doesn't make it easier because he does it twice. Doesn't make it better. Let's have a look.
You know, there are elections that come and go. Some elections are, you know, important, some are not. But this one this one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you.
There's a lot of defense of it from various sectors. He's talking about his heart going out to them. There's also lots of people putting up pictures of all sorts of people, including Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama doing a similar sign. My response to those people online has been, show me the video, right? Show me the video of that still, and then we'll talk. Because someone might go, I've got to go back to full screen to show you this. Someone might go, oh, you know, it's that high. I'm not going to do it because people will then clip this. They're that tall. Or they might wave and then they might get the mid wave. But the slap of the chest and the arm out like that just feels very different. Feels very different to me.
Thank you.
and the and turns around and does it again.
My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is assured.
Thank you, PBS. Give you credit where credit is due. Yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. It looks pretty bad to me. So this is what I tweeted out today, and I'll give you the responses from it as well. So there are only two possibilities. I think there's a third possibility actually, but I put in the tweet. There's only two possibilities for Elon Musk's salute today. He either is actively signaling US white supremacist voters, or he isn't smart enough to know that innocently throwing his hand up like that twice will be seen as actively signaling those people. Now, there has been a defense of Elon Musk today from some of his supporters, basically saying he's an autistic man that can't control his emotions. That's a third possibility. And I guess, sure, that's a possibility. I don't know whether I buy it entirely, but we'll put it in the pot as well. But my problem is, by chance yesterday, I reported a couple of posts on Twitter. So this is the imagery, and you've seen the full video. I haven't taken it out of context. This is the imagery, and his platform did not think that these tweets were outside the community guidelines. And if you're listening to the audio podcast, there is a tweeter, I think in New Zealand, I think they follow me. Yay. Why do you conflate things? New Zealanders are not Americans. Trump is a shill for the people of Israel. I don't really want to set off algorithms as I'm saying it, but the religious people of Israel. Right? That's someone who follows me on Twitter, who then also put out this tweet. And again, I don't really want to fire off an algorithm, but for the people in the audio podcast, it's a picture probably from the 1950s, 40s, 50s, with a big sign on top of a house that say, people of Israel, the religious people from Israel, keep moving. This is a white man's neighborhood. So I reported both of those tweets yesterday, and the response I got from Elon Musk's platform, Elon Musk with the just giving people his heart salute, is that there was no violations of the X rules in the content that I reported. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you take the totality of the imagery around Elon Musk, you put it up beside what it seems he's okay with, that just may add some weight to the accusation. Perhaps, because the flip side to people defending him is people are saying, again, using some kind of accusation of a, is it called DSD? I'm not sure, but a mental health issue, that he let slip his true feelings. That's the other side that people have been saying online as well. Obviously, I don't know, we don't know, but it's not looking pretty good. And again, I'll say to people who will respond to this video with images of, I think I saw one of Barack Obama and I think I saw one of Hillary Clinton. Show me the video where those stills have come from, and then we'll compare the videos side to side, right? And if we compare the videos side to side and, they look somewhat like this.
This one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you.
If the videos side by side look as aggressive as that, then
My heart goes out to you.
Then I will withdraw and apologize. Show me the videos and I will then compare side to side. Now, you appreciate, guys, that running that by myself at the minute, I'd not get a chance to keep too much of a close eye on all of the messages coming in. Thank you, though. I can appreciate, and you guys are having a chat in there. Just a few that I can catch off my eye. Simon says on the X platform, there's a lot of neo-Nazis Elon is hanging out with now. I'll tell you, that's interesting. I'm sorry, Pat, you are playing in the mud with dealing with people in X. Why are you so shook about this stuff? I'm not shook by it. I'm just going, this is what's there. I mean, no, I don't think I'm shook by it. But the answer to your question is, as soon as Blue Sky is able to do with video and audio what Twitter can do, then I'll move. But at the moment, I'm using Twitter as much as anything for for getting the word out there, and actually peppering some of these conversations to places that otherwise wouldn't have them. I am on Blue Sky though. I see LTS saying Blue Sky. I am on Blue Sky. Blue Sky is not yet able to do some of the things that Twitter can do, like hosting more than 60-second videos, etc. So there. Yeah, Kiwi Skirt's asking, what can't it do? There's an example for you. You have to have a secondary product to schedule, and I schedule stuff all the time. The only way I get a day off is to schedule stuff, and it can't hold any more than 60-second videos, no matter what. So there you go. Right, this is the part of the show that I've invited the right whingers along to. Oh, is that the one? No, that's not the one. Because I want to talk about one of the promises that Donald Trump has made. And he's made a promise that the government will only recognize 2 genders. And then he said male and female, I think. Should we go? We'll go to the video first of all to check out what he exactly said, and then we'll get to the conversation.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based.
Of course you will. I think by colorblind, he just means like white. Just white. That'll be the color.
As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only 2 genders, male and female.
So, just for clarity, this is what we're going to talk about. And this is a conversation that I think is being handled very badly. And this is the conversation that the media is not helping with. And just to remind you, this is the specific 17 seconds we're going to get to.
As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only 2 genders, male and female.
Now, the thing at the moment is so many people, well, this idea about gender being used and then saying male and female when male and female are the sex. Now, the conversation goes on, and I have to tell you that the media is not helping. So here is a particular New Zealand media who is actually misquoting Trump. Donald Trump to sign orders ending diversity programs proclaimed there are only 2 sexes. It's not what Trump did. Trump said there were 2 genders, and plainly there's not. And if there are any of you off Twitter who have come to watch me because I've invited you, there's plainly not, and one of your queens is about to explain to you that there's not. Her name is Tomi Lahren. She's about to explain that. But the media is also muddying the waters by misquoting what's been said. See, what Donald Trump said was incorrect. And it's not just Donald Trump. This is something that needs to be sorted out, right? Because I remember when, and forgive me, I forget the name of the MP who was the architect of the people being able to change their sex on birth certificates. And the night that passed through, this politician here in New Zealand stood up and said, finally, people can have on their birth certificates the gender they associate with or identify as. And that's actually not the law that was just passed. So even the MP that put it through fucked up the language because it was the sex marker that they can change. Now, I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent, but there's a problem with the language. Now, I want to play you a bit from Tomi Lahren. Now, Tomi Lahren Tomi Lahren is the one on the far end with perfect hair, was on Piers Morgan, and she said something about women. And I find this kind of hilarious, but let me explain how she, with one sentence that people haven't seemed to have picked up on yet, have just smashed this whole thing about there only being 2 genders, male and female, right? She's smashed it, and she's the right-wing darling who isn't actually supposed to be giving ammunition to us, but she has. I'll play it for you. See if you can pick it up.
Why should biological women, and I don't even like saying that, Piers. I don't like even referring to myself as a biological woman. I'm a woman, okay? I was born that way. I don't like having to preface that with what I am biologically. Yeah. I'm a woman.
Did you pick it up? If you didn't pick it up, here's the part of the sentence again that I listen to this. I do listen to Piers Morgan sometimes because I'm an addict of bad content. And I laughed out loud when I heard it. I'll play it for you again. Just a snippet from what she just said. You listening?
I'm a woman, okay? I was born that way.
I'm a woman, okay? I was born that way. I'm a woman, okay? I was born that way.
But were you, Tommy? Were you born a woman? See, what Tomi Lahren has just done is inadvertently said to the world, and I'm not even going to play the game of yes, no, right, wrong. What she's just said is there is at least 4 genders, because she wasn't born a woman, she was born a girl. And at some stage, she, pardon the pun, transitioned into a woman. That means born a boy and transitioned into a man. Now, I'm not even having the debate about non-binary. When I say I'm not having the debate, I'm not having the debate minimizing it. I'm saying we don't need to. She was born a girl and grew into a woman. There's 2. I was born a boy and then I grew into a man. There's 2. So we've got 4 already. So what she has done is actually given us fodder for the conversation. Here's the other thing, right? Remember what Trump's just said, there are only 2 genders. That side of the argument forever wants to go to the dictionary. What does it say in the dictionary? What is a woman? In the dictionary, it says adult human female. Okay. So what does the dictionary say about gender? Because if we're going to use the dictionary as our yardstick for truth in this conversation of gender, the dictionary says a group of people in a society who share particular qualities or ways of behaving which that society associates with being male, female, or another identity. So if the answer to what is a woman is the dictionary definition, then surely logic would dictate that the answer to what is gender is the dictionary definition. Because words are important, right? That's all they go to when they're asking, what is a woman? And then we have to talk about and think about words we're using today. I looked for it for an hour and I couldn't find it. There was a clip last week that I saw on one, it might have been Tim Pool, it played through my thing, and talking about, you never use the language of sex and gender incorrectly. You should only use it the real way. Okay, let's think about that. Do you have a pet? I have a pet. She's being a bit snobby with me at the moment. As you can see, she's not with me. I just called her she. Do you know what I say to her when she's been good? I say, Nala, you're a good girl. Hang on. She's not a girl. She's female, but she's not a girl. Have you got a pet? Have you got a little male cat? Do you say, how are you, boy? How's your day been? So what we've done is we've just proven and shown that we can use language in a way that is accurate and yet not the dictionary definition. Someone said to me the other day, do you want to come around this weekend and play poker with the boys? I didn't go like, I'm not that keen to hang out for an evening with a bunch of, underage, prepubescent males. No, they're all in their 30s and 40s. Hang on. Where's that boy? It's not boys, is it? It's not how we go. Put that on top of this conversation where, and I've said this before, so I won't belabor this point, that at once language evolves, at one stage, and I've used the word gay as an example because it seems to be a pretty clear one, by 100% of people who use the word gay, it meant happy. And then someone chose that word to mean man who was attracted to other men. And then there was a progression of language. And then at some point, you basically got to where 100% of people who now use the word gay, none of them use it to mean happy. So this word has changed. It has taken a period of time and it now means something else. That's exactly what's happening with gender roles right now. That's exactly what's happening. Now, will it be woman? Will it be man? Will those things change? I don't know. But what we're doing in society today is actually what we've always done with language. And we're trying, and society is trying on different things. And at some stage, that journey will be finished. And we as a society, just like the word gay, will come to an end decision, and that will be that. So I'm sorry, right whingers. I've explained it to you like you're 5 years old. There are not two genders. As one of your queens says, there's at least 4. Others would say many more. Male and female are the sex, and then there's intersexed as well. So there's 3 there. That's science. That's also in the dictionary. And I just think that we need to sort out the language around this because it's being used to attack a group of vulnerable people. We've talked about it before. The rate of suicide, the rate of attack amongst the transgender community, higher than everybody else. It's not right. It's not appropriate. It's not fair. It needs to stop. And we need to support them, not just with legislation, not just with, you know, being there for them, marching, as Gary was talking about earlier, for a different reason though, but also like we need to own these things again. This is not another example where the right gets to set the narrative, right? You don't get to say, Mr. Trump, that from now on there's only 2 genders, male and female. You don't get to change that word because male and female are sex, not genders. Heareth endeth the lesson. Anyway, see if Chewie was here, it'd be pushing back all the way through. But I wanted to share that with you. All right, team, that's us for tonight. Thank you for being with me tonight. Thank you for sticking around because there was just me yelling in your face tonight as opposed to 2 bearded buffoons. We are back again tomorrow night from 9 o'clock for another live edition of Big Hearing News. Remember, we are indeed... I thought about doing one of those. Shall I do one of those... what are they called? You know, the... what am I drawing? I'm trying to draw a thermostat, you know, with the thermometer. Thermometer, that's a better word. With the red at the bottom, and then it goes all the way up, and putting 100 patrons on it to see what we can get. Because I have to tell you, that thermometer at the moment would have about plus 15. It's pretty good. Said over a couple of months, let's try and get 100 new patrons. In the past 24 hours, probably got about 15. So that's like 1/8-ish of the way there. So if we can get 15 again in the next 24 hours, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just playing with you. One quick super chat that's come in. The gender issue isn't really a left-wing, right-wing issue. It's an emblem of media and politicians with the wrong priorities. It's a symbol of the neglect they rightly feel that's tangible. From SP. Well, is that an Australian $10? That means that's about 50 New Zealand dollars, something like that. All right, guys, I've enjoyed tonight. Dr. Gary Payinda, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Obviously, it's a pretty sort of heavy old night with news with Mr. Trump getting back in there, sort of being the runner of the world police. It's a bit scary, but we'll stick with you. We'll always be here. You'll always be able to hang out with us. And you can tomorrow night for another edition of Big Hearing News.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand
All right, team. Thanks for being with us tonight. As we said, catch you tomorrow night from 9 for another edition of Big Hairy News. Looking to get some other guests and stuff on this week. Reminding you that I'm out of action for a couple of weeks come this Saturday, where I go off to get married. Woohoo! And but we'll be with you right up until Saturday, Friday night, with regular run of the show. Stay safe, stay well. We'll catch you all tomorrow night from 9 o'clock for another edition. Hooroo, team.